Hi, this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and recently a friend asked if I could do these 4 chairs. They're shaped. I'm going to be cutting out new foam and wrapping before I put the new cover on, and as and when we get to any things that we need to discuss, I will be telling you. I'm going to remove the fabric. I'm actually not going to remove all of this completely. Using my tack remover, which looks like this, and if you don't have one, you can use a flathead screwdriver. I'm just going to angle the edge of the tool along the side of the staple and tap it a couple of times just to get underneath, and then I'm just going to ease it up. I'm going to do that all the way along the top layer first. When I've eased them up, I'm going to use a pair of pliers. Doesn't matter what kind you use. And again, using the tool, just roll it and pull out your staples. Now don't pull like that because you're going to stress your hands and fingers. And I can assure you, after many years of doing this, my fingers sometimes ache. So I've got basically one side pulled out. I personally like to do one edge at a time. Some people like to go all the way around their chairs. As I say, I'm going to pull this second one up. Once again, having eased up the staples, I'm going to remove them. And now I'm going to go on the third layer. And again on the third layer, just pull staples out. So there's really no right or wrong way of doing it, just as long as everything's out. And it doesn't take that long. It's just a bit messy. And I'll carry on going around the back all the way to the front of the chair seat. So now I can double check nothing's been left behind as I work my way on round. And these folds, if you've got lots of folds, sometimes the staples are well and truly hidden in a number of layers before you get them all out. That's why I tend to go in lengths of chair rather than all the way around. But now I'm going to keep the piping cord on this one because it's already to the size. If you can reuse things, do. I'm going to be reusing this bottom cloth. This is the last of the 4 that I had to undo, and as you can see, it's a different style of chair seat. Now this was the one I started a short while ago. I've taken off the piping and the bottom cloth. My friends asked me to make a new base for it because the elastic is a bit loose and it's the only seat that they have that just sinks when anybody sits in it. So I'm going to use one of the others as a template, and I'll get that cut out shortly. All I need to do is make sure the back, which I can feel here, and the front are in line. And then again with the side, I need to just make sure the sides are about right too. The top one is just maybe an 1/8 wider, and it fits in there okay. I'm thinking this one would be fine to use as a template, so I'll find a board and draw it out in a minute. I went and got some board. It's not quite as thick as the original, but I'm sure it's going to work. The other thing about it is it has a little piece missing, but it was the only piece that I could find at the DIY store today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that at the back of the chair where people don't tend to sit. They tend to sit in the middle. And not only that, there is strength along here with the back of the chair frame. So I'm sure it's going to be fine. And I'm just going to get a Sharpie, draw all the way around like that. And then I will get it cut. I actually don't have the right tools to cut it, so I'm going to a friend's house. So I can remove that, and that is the new form for the seat. Now my friend Susan is going to be using this machine. It's got a saw blade that goes up and down, and we will be able to cut the new, well, we've already started cutting it out, but we'll be able to cut the whole shape out of it shortly.
You can't push hard on it because it'll break the saw.
The best thing to do is to go around, when you're making new foam for a seat, is to go around each separate chair base. And I say that because one chair base might be slightly different to another, and you don't want any of that to show up, so I always do them separately. Now this white is actually a very soft foam, and I'm using a Sharpie, and I'm just putting it upright like that to draw around. I can actually use a pair of scissors like this and cut around it. Now I'm going to do it on the thicker foam, exactly the same. Draw around like that all the way around. It should match the white one that I've just cut out. Will be very close to. And I'll use a different one for the next one. To cut the foam out, I'm going to use an electric knife. You can use a normal carving knife or a bread knife. Either one will work. And just try to keep the blade at right angles. So I'm going to cut down, and then I'm going to start cutting around the black line. Now I've gone straight across the cutout because it's easier to do that later, and I'm just going to carry on going down the shape of the chair. And now I've made the whole piece a lot smaller and easier to use. Now I went outside the line here. That's not going to matter. Once everything's pulled in, it won't show. You can also have the foam hanging over the side of the table. It just keeps it flatter. And again, just carry on round. Now having done that, I'm going to flip this over so that the top side is up. And then I'm going to put this face with the ink face down too. And it should more or less line up. Then I'm going to spray an adhesive. I'll just hold everything together so that it won't move while I initially put the foam onto the board. Now having done that, I'm going to flip that over. And this is where we drew it out. This is the board that I drew around for this particular chair. And I'm going to just flip it over all together like that. A bit shy there, that's fine. It's all going to be pushed down in a minute. And then I'm going to wrap it with this Dacron, which I've cut oversized. It touches the side, either side of the foam, and front and back. Sometimes when I'm doing a few of these, I'll set them all up like this so I know which ones are ready to go. Right, now for sectioning off, I'm working where the center is of everything that I need. Because this has a serpentine front, I'm going to line up my yard stick along the front at the where it goes in on both sides, so that's level, and I know that's going to be even. So I am just going to draw a line like that. I'm going to measure all the way across, and it comes to 23, so half of 23. This one is just over 23, is 11 and a half, and I'm just going to go between the 11 and a half and the next mark. Now that's my center mark. I'm going to use this speed square, line that up, make sure nothing moves because we don't want to push anything off, and I am going to just put a line at the top here. So the cross hatch there that shows halfway and there line up. So now I'm going to mark my center by lining up this mark and my line there. And I'm going to draw down my center here to there. Okay, so that's in place. Now I need to dissect the base across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark down to find the center of here, and that is 20.5. So we are looking at 10.25. So I'm going to mark across there. I'm going to use my square, pop it on here. So it's now in line with here and across the bottom, and I'm just going to put a line across there. Really easy. And then again I'm going to line my yardstick on the cross and go all the way across. So I can line my pattern up here and then work out the pattern side to side. Having got all the layers on there, the base, the 2 sets of foam and the dacron or wrap, whichever you want to call it, then you measure the widest point. And usually what I do is I just measure to the table on both sides. I don't pull it down or anything. I'm not interested in doing that. And then front to back the same, just fold it on in there to the table. Now I've got the back of the chair here, so I'm going to place this fabric over. It's birds, so birds are flying this way. So I know that this is the way I want the fabric to go. And if I wriggle this fabric into place, I then determine that the center is actually a bird flying here. Once this is in, then I'll be able to take measurements from this and determine whether I can cut it smaller for the subsequent chairs. Nothing will go to waste. Anything that's left over from this piece of fabric will be put into piping. So the first thing to do is determine where the center is. And so I'm going to make sure that this is in line. I'm going to staple it back here, bring up the bottom and make sure that the bottom is in line too. So here's my mark. I'm thinking that the wing here will go along this line here. I'm thinking. I'm not 100% sure at the moment, so until I turn it over. So I'm going to staple that in. And then the same on the other side. I can move all of that in one go. All of this here will be used as piping, so I'm not wasting anything on the first chair. And then, yeah, the wing is there. And it's a little bit low, but I think I'll be able to wriggle it in, and I'm going to pop it in here. This is the top end. This is kind of moved around on the foam, which is a bit annoying. It should release if I do one end and then do the other. With my hand, I'm just going to push this forward to see how much I can actually take in. And here's the top of the chair, and there's the beak. And I'm thinking if I push the beak to the top of the chair here, that would be a good starting point for the back of the chair, because that looks nice and even, and then slowly this seems to be moving up as well. So we're going to start at the back of the chair and pull that right in. Here comes the annoying thing about upholstering, is you've got to take everything out you started with, but at least I've got a starting point. Pulled all of this back. I've leveled those two wings with the back of the chair. The center point goes on through, and that allows me on the back to trim off this extra fabric, and then I don't have to deal with it later. And I'm a good couple of inches inside from the back of the chair, and as it's rounded I don't have to worry too much. I'll just go across here. Take this one out, which was my holding pin. Now the side ones should stop everything moving forward or backwards as I remove this. And then I'm going to see how it looks. So I'm going to raise that one up. I'm going to pull this back. Now I actually like the way this is going here, so I'm thinking I'm just going to leave that on the second feathers, and it goes all the way, it's on here, so I'm going to secure that in place and then look at it. I'm going to compare both ends and make sure that they feel about right. Yeah, I think that's going to work. This back, once it's pulled in and round, will go in nicer than it is. At the moment it's creased, but that'll come out. And then I'm going to leave the side ones for a minute while I maneuver this into place. I can always take everything out if I don't like it. So when you cut back, don't cut too much off. So I'm going to pull that in to here, and I'll see how nice that looks in a minute. So let's put the other side in, and again I'm going to pull this down now, and I think I prefer this part of the bird on the edge of this chair. And now I've decided where I want it. I'm going to do it this way because it's rather a large chair seat for me to be pulling. So I'm going to pull it. There's my corner. The way I'm pulling it is actually I'm pulling it down, but I'm also pulling it out because I don't want any folds on the front of the chair there. Now looking at it, I need to bring this one back, and I might have to release these ones to let them go forward a bit. Once they're in, I'll be happy. So I'm going to pull it back again. And I prefer that. That's this part on the edge, not this one. I think it's going to look better. I've reworked this edge in, which I'm happy with now, and then I'm going to remove these ones and let it ping forward a little bit. I think that would look neater on the front. Just trim this back a little bit so I'm not having so much fabric. And I'm not shaping it, I'm just going straight across. Now, let's see where this one goes. I'm not sure how far to pull that in, so I'm just going to pull it a little way in because it's going to alter when it goes around the corner. So I'm just going to hold that. And the same on this side, just like that. Now this puts enough tension on the back so I can actually work in the back. As on the front, I'm going to work these sides in separately, but I have the fabric on the front to be pulling against. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand there and I'm going to bring that back, and I'm thinking if I've got that feather in line with the back of the chair, it might look better. And again, back here. And I'm curving it just slightly at the moment. I'm not sure how far I need to curve it to, but I will do that for now. So I've just put this side in. I'm going to work on this side. But as you see, some of the rippling has come out. It's kind of moved, but when it's pulled sideways, it's going to all come out. So I've removed that one and I'm pulling it on round. But remember, I'm not pulling it in, I'm kind of pulling it like I did on the front, in but to one side. Otherwise I'm going to have lots of wrinkles, and I don't want any wrinkles just yet. Now when I look at this, the wings here are going in a straight line at the moment, and the back seems to be going in a straight line, so I think I made the right choices. So I'm going to work on the sides and alter those too. Having opened the side up, my concern is to have the same roll effect on the front and back as it is on the side, and at the moment there's nothing, it's just square. So I'm going to pull back like that a sec and then pull it across. I'm really pulling this in. You got to be mean sometimes to these things. So, okay, it looks like the beak of the bird is going to run along here. So that's a good sign. Now I've got to work it in. Work it from the front to the back. I'll pull over to about there. That might seem a lot to you. Yeah, so I'll pull that across and staple it. When I tip it over, I can then see how it's going to be pulling in, and I think that's where I want it. This is quite a workout, this chair. And pull. You've got the third wing there is on the side of the chair. Trying to straighten this neck out a little bit, although the chair actually curves, so it's a little bit of an awkward problem. There we go. Now look at this again and decide what needs to be done. Yeah, I like that. That's coming in nicely. Hopefully it'll come in the same on the other side. I just need to make sure that the tail, which is this, or the start of the tail, is actually in line too. So I'm going to pull that, hold it with my hand there, and hopefully my fingers are strong enough to hold this in place. Now what I'm thinking is I'll cut this fabric here back here, because that doesn't all have to be in there, and I'm going to pull it out like that. But I'm going to be starting to pull the fabric up and round like this. So it will have little pleats every now and again, or a ripple. Before I get too much into this, I'm going to be cutting back this side fabric. I've worked so far on the side, and I am now going to pull in the front going to that side. Now I'm going to have to be quite brutal, and I'm going to pull that in to within ½ an inch. I see where I want it. I'm going to put my staple in here, and then I'm going to work backwards. So I'm going to pop that in so that there's no wrinkles on the front. I want it to go in relatively flat, so I'm going to trim back like that, and then I'm going to cut down like that. And you'll see, like here, it's opened up. Here it just flattens out. Now I'm not working into the corner. So I'm thinking that these three feathers would look quite good if they go in like that. So I'm going to start there, but I'm going to put a pleat in here just to hold it. And because of that, that should actually more or less all pull in. So I'll pull this round. Because I've pulled it down, it flattens out. So there's that one. Now I've got to work in this corner, so I'll bring this in a little bit there, and here I'll put a little, I'm not going to put a crease in it, I'm just going to kind of pull the fabric round and up, which does the same thing. Hopefully the rest will just jostle in like that, with no, oh dear, maybe, okay, so I'm going to have to pull this one in slightly, but pulling hard on there pulls this out. We'll pop that one in, and preferably put lots of little pleats into the corner like that, and you'll find that it shouldn't pleat on the side of your chair. Have a look at the front. It's a little bit rippled, but I think that's partly the paint, and the same there. The way the paint is makes the fabric sturdier and not so easily to maneuver it. So now I'll work on the other side before I work on the back, doing exactly the same thing. Now, working on the second side, I need to bring this swan neck at least an inch over the side here. So let me work that in. It's quite a... What I do is I push it from the fabric there all the way over until I've got it where I want it. It will settle in. Oh dear, oh dear. There we go. And that's it. And staple that into position. The initial pulling is hard because it doesn't want to go where I want it to go to. Pull all the bird in, and sometimes leaning on it helps. So the bird neck is straight, so get that in. And then I'm actually going to take some of this bulk out here, like that, because that'll push more up into there in a minute. And I think it was over one feather from the tail, so there was that, so let's pull that on. I've got that stapled in. Now I'm going to trim back this fabric a little bit. Now I'm going to remove this one and bring in these tail feathers here. Now what I need to do is make this the same on this side. So I'm going to pull back here and staple, and then I'll have to pull all of that in. Like that. And it's quite easy. All I need to do is pull that back and make sure that all the ripples are taken out of the front here. And because the picture is a mirror image, I can count the feathers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th feather from the center is touching. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is now touching. So far this feather and the one on that side seem to match, and along the front. So now all I'm going to do, actually I'm going to take some of this chunk out here, but not cutting anything else that I shouldn't be, as that will help all of this stay flat. So I'm going to just pleat it and pull it and pleat it and pull it until it goes in as smoothly as I can get it, with no wrinkles on the front, as I did on the other side. Okay, this one needs to be stapled first. Sometimes you've got to kind of work these, think about where you're putting them. Again, there's a slight pleat there, but it goes between the paint, so I'm thinking the paint is just going to cause a little bit of a problem. It's gone in quite well. Okay, so I've trimmed both of the fronts up. That's all ready to go, and now I'm working on the back. This is all arched, so everything going in is going to have to be curved and mildly pleated, but also pulled back. It's a bit of a trick. So I'm pulling it so it goes in smoothly here. Let's see if it'll go into about there. On there. Looks like it will go in. Hold it really firm with my hand to get this one in. But I'm also bringing it round so it does, if you see, there's little pleats here. So that's how I want it to go in. As I'm getting to the top, I'm going to push that into there and then trim back all the way. If I pull it up, it's level. That's perfectly okay. And then it's on for this side. So I'm going to be pulling it on round and working out where it looks smooth enough to go in. Because as I say, I can't have any ripples on the outside. It all has to be smooth. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to put a pleat in here. Now I'm thinking that this neck should be going at right angles into the back. So I'm going to pull all of this back down like here, this. And there's a couple more wrinkles that can go in, which I'm going to put in now. Okay, so on the second side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to bring all of this in. And this is when you start counting things. On this side, these three are almost in line, which gives you the curvature. So, the same on this. I'm going to bring those three almost in line as I pull it round to give the curvature. Whoops, daisy. There we go. Oh, blimey. This is hard on your hands. On the other side, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have to make sure that it's equal on the other side from there. And this is how you're going to put the other chairs in. So I'll start pulling it in. 1, 2, 3, 4. So pull that in and over, and I'll pull this in a minute. So like that, and then pull in the middle there so it goes evenly and no ripples. The neck of the swan or the duck or wherever it is going in at right angles. So I'm going to pull it across so it's at right angles. I think that will be it. Those little notches we've got to work on, and just like I did on the other side, I am going to trim back. Now I'm going to wriggle everything into this hole here like that, and I'm going to pull this the center. So I'm not even going to really measure from there to there. Just going to grab the center and I'm going to pull that back until it goes in here. It's quite tight and it's wrinkled, but we'll see if we can get some of that out. Now, having secured it, I'm going to get my scissors, find the corner, the inside corner, and just cut down towards it, not through it, because I don't know, I wasn't given the chairs, so I don't know how they look. I am going to be pulling this a little bit further down, yeah, like that, so it's tight. And then I'm going to be pulling this and putting a corner in it, and you'll see that that actually takes some of the rippling out. And I can actually cut a little bit closer because that's going to come over the top like that. And although there's a little bit of rippling, it's not too bad. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to cut back some of this from this corner like that and like that, and actually into there so it's a little bit more forgiving. Pop, put one there, and then come round the corner like that. Don't worry about this, sort that out in a minute if we can. Actually, we can do it now. So that's going to come back and that's going to go over like that. And we'll have a look in a minute and see what it looks like from the front. But what I will do is trim that back, trim that and that, because even if I'm reworking it, I don't need that. I'm going to make some piping. I want it to be on the bias so that it actually goes around the chair without making any problems. Put that at right angles, make a triangle, and then cut on the fold like this, all the way across. Having cut it across the fold, use a ruler and cut 2-inch widths like this. Just follow it down. I show you every time, but for anybody who hasn't watched one of my videos, I try to cover everything even though I've done it before. So we'll make 2-inch strips. Because it's on the bias, it will actually fold around the chair and follow the contours really nicely. We need a few strips of these. This is the piping that came off originally, and all I'm going to do is pull it. This is actually loose enough to pull. So I am just going to ease the fabric all the way down until I can actually pull it off the other end. I know that this piping will fit around the chair, so I don't have to make too much. We'll get to a point where all I have to do is grab hold of the end of it and it will just pull off. So I'm going to make lengths of piping. I am going to pop the next one down on top, but I'm going to put it at right angles like that. I'm going to sew from that corner to this corner. So pop it underneath, and I'm going to put it on. So it's on a number 2.8. 2.6 will be perfectly okay as well, and it's a small stitch, so it should hold it quite tight. Once I've got to the end, I fold it in half, patterns up, put the next one on like that at a 45-degree angle, and put it on for the next one, and then just carry on going till you've got all the parts attached. And it makes a long string then. Now I always keep my piping on this long piece because it's easier to deal with, and not only that, I'm only making small lengths up. I always use a piping foot. It has a groove in it like that, which means you can run the piping in there and keep it stable. You can always use a zipper foot like this, but it just doesn't cinch up very well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the piping in the center of the fabric and fold it on round like that. Pop it underneath the piping foot, extend the stitch to a number 5, and then sew it all into place. And it might not pull first time, but it will after you've got a bit under there. When you come to one of the joins, split the threads apart and give yourself a good 1/4 inch seam allowance, which then can be pushed out using your fingers like that, and you just carry on wrapping your piping in the fabric. You come to the join, just push your fingers hard up against there to make sure that everything is flat, and let it pass through underneath your piping foot, and carry on to the end of your existing piping if you've got it, or until you think you've got to the end of your piping that you need. And I'm going to start putting the piping on, and I'm going to go along this edge first, pop that right there and secure, and then I'm going to fold it with as sharp a corner as I can. Well, I'm going to kind of flatten the corner out actually, but try to make sure that the outside edge here is sharp. And when you're putting it on, just make sure your thumb keeps it in line with the chair. You don't want it to be too far over the seat. Ease the piping around as you go. You don't have to put too many places in because you're going to be putting more on in a minute. So, and it's level with my thumb. maybe just a little bit over, but not by very much. Pull a little bit so it's taut. I'm going to roll back some of the bottom cloth and line that up. I think that will pull that way, that will pull that way. Yeah, this should go in quite nicely. And if you put them at every inch or so, like that, you should get a nice finish. Now when you're going around the corner, put the curve in first, like that, and then just staple it into place. Like that. And again, just work your bottom cloth in as you go. Don't pull it too far because you're going to be pulling it in other directions. So just make sure it goes in flat. Work your way on around the chair. Because this was done on the bias, you can stretch it round. So just ease that round. Any corners, any curves. And as I say, go back. Put your bottom cloth in. If you want to put the bottom cloth on later, you can. That's up to you. When you get to the back, like this, put your corner in as best you can. I've got a join in here, so it makes it a bit chunky. And then, with scissors, just cut in towards the corner. And then you'll be able to open your piping up and go all the way around like that. And again at the other corner, it's only to ease the tension. Okay, so just like on this corner, I'm going to fold all the fabric in to make the corner like that and secure it. Get to the corner where I want to go around. I'm going to cut into it. Now this one's slightly different because I'm not going to worry about going on round because it overlaps, and I'm just going to cut that out like that. Just lay it on top and secure. Now with the bottom cloth, I'm just going to carry on working my way around to the top. Alter this slightly because it goes in differently. So I'm going to fold that back and secure it. On this side, I'm going to fold all of that fabric underneath. And the way I've put it in, it has altered it, so I will also make alterations as I finish up. Any threads I'm going to make sure go underneath. Don't need those. There we go. Almost done. The nice thing about having one done, as you saw me put it together, is with this piece of fabric that's left, I am able to lay it on top of the chair that's done, like this, and move it. And although it's going to be tight, let's move that back up. Should be able to lay it on top. Okay, so there we are. That's on top. And if I fold this fabric over, because this is what we've got left, is it just, the center of this fabric just touches the side of the table here, which means that one width will cover 2 chair seats because we've already got one in. So I'm going to cut this piece for the next two chairs. Now I measured, and I can get the two pieces out. So there's the beak of the bird and the beak of the bird, and if I stretch that out, it's going to be awkward pulling it in, but it will work. So here's my center, and I'm going to make a nick on the center like that, all the way along the fabric, just cutting it in half. The first one I will now use as a template for all the others. Now this is the last one that I'm doing. I'm going to look at my seat here, and I'm on the bottom two feathers here across on the front, and on the back it's just as the beak comes to the corner. So I'm going to do that initially on here. So there's the beak, there's the corner of the chair. I'm going to staple that in. The two feathers here that are going on the front, so I'm going to pull that really tight so that it lines up here. It's got to be exact, or as close to. So I'm not going to do either side. This side is really tight, as you can see. It's there, and it's got to come on round here. By looking at the bottom here, is that this wing comes in to the side here of the chair front. So I'm going to do that on both sides, is the part I'm looking for. So I'm going to secure that. Now I'm going to do it on the other side. Now I'm going to pull the back, make sure that it's where I need it. That's the center back. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's the corner of the 6th one. I'll do it on this side first. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So along here is where I want it on that back. It's a little ways over, so I think that's probably where I want it. And this was even, so let's push that in. Now, having secured this side in, I'm going to work on this side. So I've got the front and the back secure. Now I'm going to work on the sides. Now this side is the shortest. I've got to really pull this in, and I know that the beak has to be level with here for it to work out. So let's pull this in. This is going to take a bit of yanking. It only just goes across. Stick that in. Closer than I like, but it'll be fine. Now because it's so tight on this side, this is the side I'm actually going to work in first. I'm going to double check on the lower corner here that the 6th one is in line here. That's where I'm aiming. From here on it starts pleating, but I'm also going to work in the front so that I know where it goes. So I'm going to look at these parts here and match them. It's time consuming, but it actually goes in a lot quicker. And then just kind of wriggle this so it's in flat like we did before. For the bird tail is within 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch. So I'm going to pull that in. Here's the tail. Pull it in, secure it, and then just pull it in slightly like that so it smooths it. Now I can ease this corner in and repeat, but first of all I'm going to cut some of this back. Have a quick look. These feathers here all come more or less into a line, so I want that on here. Just pull that up, and it wants to put a ripple there. This has varied on each of them, so just be prepared that they will change. And then all across the front, just pull it and smooth it. I'm pulling all of that in like that, and then just securing it. Pull in the side. Here's our line across, and we've got to get that bird beak right over. So here it is. The beak is on my line, and the 3rd feather is almost in there. So I'm going to actually secure it so I don't have to keep pulling on this. Yeah, there we go. It does pull in. You've really got to have determination for this sometimes. So this one is the next one to be pulled in, and it starts going round the corner, and as it goes round it's starting to ripple, which is what we want. Now this side I have to match up with the other front, so it's got to be within 1/4 of an inch. So I'll have a look in a minute. Once I've done this, it might just go in anyway without too much fuss. Remove the bulk of the wadding, and I'm going to just pull it up into the center. These ones here have to be level, so I'm going to pull that in like that, and then I can work on the corner and secure. On the bird above, it's halfway through the 5th one, but then it smooths out along that side, so that's what I'm going to work on. So I'm going to pop that there and secure it. I can adjust it if it's not quite right. On this one further back, I'm just going to secure it because I'm using my fingers just to pull it in and hold it and to work up here, which is to bring these ones almost in line, like that, into the center again. From this bird going here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to take this one out and pull it in that little bit extra. Having trimmed all of this back, I'm going to pull these feathers to the 4th one. So secure it. So what I'm going to do now is pull this back, and it will ripple a little bit, but not too much. And then you just repeat on the other side. Or you could count the ones that are over, so it'd be 2 over. So 1, 2. Pull this in slightly to smooth it. Cut back on both sides. I am going to pull the neck in at right angles and as tight as I can, like that. And I'm going to staple it so it's secure. There we go. And again on the other side. So I'm just going to pull in the back so it's level, carries on going round like this. To pull all of this in, you just find the center and pull it back as far as you can. Just put one in so it can be reworked. I'm going to cut that back a little bit because I don't need that much on there. But in the meantime, I'm going to secure it by pulling it back as far as I can. Trim it all up, and the same on this side. Pull it to form that angle on there. Actually, I'm going to pull this into this corner and cut a little bit more down on that side. Pull that into this corner here. Trim it back like that, and repeat on the other side. Nice and easy to finish. When you've got the piping in place, then put the bottom cloth up. Let's do this, top and bottom. And then side to side. I'll have to work this in, I think. Doesn't take too long, just a little bit of stretching where it needs to be. Thank you for joining me on this project. I hope you learned something about placing patterns and getting them to look good on more than one chair. There's usually something new to learn on each project that you do, and I hope I managed to impart some useful information. Please remember to subscribe and hit the bell button. Apparently if you do both, you get notifications that I've put something else online. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao. To cover this, I'm going to use the original one to work out all the points. Okay, I'm going to have to apologise for the noise in the background. We have a storm going. have a storm going through. So anyway,